I just want to let you know there's 1.5 minutes until I'm calling you back. So head to your seat, please. Oh. All right. Okay, we are back. So we're back after our break. Thank you so much for being prompt. And we are on our last two items, item B6 and B7. So B6 was changed to discussion of Modesto City Schools and California School Employees Association's collective bargaining agreement. And I'm turning this over to Dr. Noguchi.
Thank you, President Marks. Thank you for obviously changing this from approval to discussion. I have here tonight Roman Munoz, who is Chief Negotiator. What I'd like for him to just share elements of the agreement and proposal and open it up to questions that you might have.
Good evening, President Marks, board members-elect, Dr. Noguchi, and staff members. As Dr. Noguchi mentioned, my name is Roman Munoz. I serve as the Chief Negotiator and General Counsel to the district. Tonight, we had previously scheduled to approve our tentative agreement with CSEA Chapter 007. Unfortunately, we were informed on November 20th that the membership rejected the tentative agreement. Anytime we're in a type of this situation, it's very difficult. But I thought what I would just do is summarize the main elements of the tentative agreement and give you an update on next steps. So the district and CSEA leadership met approximately 5 times over 40 hours to negotiate this tentative agreement. And I'd really say that this was really the culmination of 2 years of work, primarily on the issue of health benefits. If you recall, our prior tentative agreement with CSEA and MTA formed a health benefits committee where members from CSEA, MTA, and the district administration met to review what were our options available when it came to health benefits. And the health benefit committee basically came up with conclusions that we needed to increase our participation in health benefits because we had a large number of employees that were not participating in our benefit plan. So with MTA, we've increased the amount. In our negotiations with CSEA, we identified a number of employees, a group of employees that were receiving a cash in lieu for health benefits, but there was no proof of participating in a benefit plan. We worked together to negotiate a tentative agreement that increased the district's contribution from $700 per month to up to $1,000 per month. And those employees that were receiving a cash in lieu but were not participating in a plan, we understood that, hey, there's a certain amount of reliance on income for that. So we had agreed to phase that out over a period of 3 years, recognizing, hey, it would take some time, but also the goal was to ensure that we would increase our participation in our health benefit plan. As the committee had concluded that in order to improve our plans and affordability for our employees, we had to increase that participation. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, the tentative agreement was not approved. I would also say that there are other aspects of the tentative agreement that definitely benefit both parties. We negotiated on a theme of mutual gains, what would benefit both sides. We extended the term of the agreement to the 22-23 school year. In addition to that, we had agreed to one-time payments equal to 2% off the salary schedule for the 19-20 and the 20-21 school years. This would be in addition to any annual increases in the salary schedule that CSEA members receive based on their experience. In addition, we had agreed to change the method in which the district contributes to the CSEA Retiree Trust Fund. We had agreed also to a 0.5% for 6 hours of professional development extended through the 2021 school year. And we also made necessary upgrades, revisions to the evaluation and probationary period to reflect the education code. And we also did agree to an additional Article 27, to address emergency closures and disruption of district operations. The idea there was that we've been presented with a number of unique situations, and we worked with our CSA leadership to negotiate a process where to ensure that employees would continue to stay in paid service and paid status, but to give the flexibility, because of these emergency situations, to adjust the duties and working conditions on a limited basis in the case of an emergency. Upon learning that the membership had rejected the tentative agreement, we contacted CSEA leadership, and we were able to meet on Wednesday, November 25th, for a period of time. They informed us that they'll be working together to work with their membership and be contacting us very shortly, hopefully this week, to schedule a next negotiation session so we can revisit the status of this tentative agreement and our next steps. At this time, I'd be more than glad to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Munoz, for all your help over all these years. You've been here the whole 9 years, putting up with a lawyer on the board you got to advise. I can't imagine anything worse. So thank you, and thank you for this. I just want to maybe delve into a little bit further. So if I'm an employee who's been taking the cash in lieu for all these years, can you explain to me, well, what's the benefit of me voting for this plan?
No, thank you. Through our negotiations, we addressed that issue, and the benefit would be that participation in a plan, group health care, to increase the number of employees, that would actually increase the number of plans available to our members. That would hopefully lower the overall cost to the membership. And at the same time, the contribution that the district would be making towards those plans would be pre-tax dollars, right? So it is before any form of compensation, and the hope would be that the better the plan, the more affordable the plan, pre-tax dollars, hey, it would eventually show a financial benefit to the employee. Not only that, but it possibly could lead to, a better discussion of stabilizing rates, which eventually would, hopefully, knock on wood, lead to, negotiating, salary increases in the long run.
Great. Thank you.
Are there any other board members with questions? I don't see any. So then we go out to the public. Are there any questions from the public?
No.
There's no questions from the public. Thank you, Ms. Chambers. Are there any comments from the public? Comments, Ms. Noonan either. So any comments via email or voicemail?
No, not on this item.
Not on this item. So back to the board for any further comments. Just
Individuals here to comment?
so that puts us back. And now go ahead, Trustee.
Actually, it was more of a question. Sorry, I've been
That's all
thinking
right.
about
No,
this.
that's all right.
It sounds like we've been working on this for quite a while, and have the general members of CSEA been, has there been communication? Do we have surveys that have gone out? Do we have responses that we kind of hear how people are feeling?
As far as internal sort of surveys with CSE, I couldn't comment on that. I do know, though, that the Joint Health Benefits Committee with management, certificated and classified staff, they met regularly, and they would prepare summaries of their meetings, and those were posted on the website.
Okay, thank you. So this does not take any action. It was, yes? Oh, there's comment.
I'm not on the comment list there, President.
Oh, so comments from the public. So you're asking just comment?
Okay, all right, I just could answer part of that question Roman couldn't answer. We had surveyed.
Okay, wait. If you're going to talk, you have to go to a microphone. And I just want to caution you, since we're still in negotiations, so, right? The summary. Okay,
Good evening, I'm Don
Corgett.
Corgett. I'm Chief Negotiator for Modesto, CSEA 007. I just wanted to address the question that you asked Roman earlier about our membership being surveyed. It was surveyed prior to negotiations, and our intent is to survey them as soon as possible again to get comment and feedback on exactly why it failed to ratify. Thank you.
thank you very much, Mr. Corgett. Okay, so there's no action on this item. It was for discussion. It was a tentative agreement, and so we will close that item. And now we're moving on to item B7, the last one, or except for any other items to be placed on the board agenda, but these are the last discussion items. Approval of management employment agreements and corresponding salary schedule. Dr. Noguchi will be presenting this item.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to start. This is actually going to be a team effort between myself and Danielle Connolly and Kathleen Spencer from School Services, but I'm going to frame the discussion initially. You know, on this board over the last 3 years, we've really had a common vision, and that vision is to establish MCS as an employer of choice and as the destination district for Stanislaus County. However, this vision doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design, on working on each of the systems and structures as we move forward. In order to realize the vision of becoming an employer of choice, it is critical that we are in a position to recruit and retain the best. And this directly aligns to our Goal 5 that you voted on 3 years ago. We have been in the process of analyzing our compensation structures at all levels of the organization. This includes benefits, salaries, longevity incentives, and the like, and we have found that the compensation for our managers, and specifically for this evening's agenda item, our executive cabinet members, are significantly lower when compared to similar districts relative to their compensation. The compensation study that was done for executive cabinet members is rooted in data. It shows that in many categories across our cabinet level positions, the MCS salary data is among the lowest, if not the lowest, for comparable districts. Tonight we will present to you an executive salary and longevity structure that will address some of the imbalance. The proposed cabinet level salary schedule seeks to establish a compensation structure similar to CSEA and MTA relative to a salary structure. Currently, CSEA and MTA members have a salary schedule with increases each year of experience. The proposed salary structure seeks to place these positions in the middle or the median for comparable groups. We are not seeking to be at the top of a salary schedule. We are merely seeking to be put in the middle. In the past, MCS has never had a salary step structure for its cabinet positions. This is not the case in comparable districts. This structure establishes the ability for individuals to grow in their position over time and have a path forward. As I mentioned, the goal is to retain our current talent and recognize our longevity with the district. It will also support the recruitment of cabinet members when vacancies become available, as the proposed salary structure puts MCS in a competitive position. It is difficult to recruit when you are at the bottom of the pay scale. However, being in the middle will be helpful. Keep in mind that the annual 3% salary adjustment is not a guarantee, and this isn't going into effect for this year. This year, what I'm asking for is the cabinet level to be placed at the middle, and subsequent years having a 3% salary adjustment as a step-in column. However, as I said, it's not guaranteed. It is dependent on two factors. One, a performance evaluation, and secondly, the fiscal position of the district. So with that, I'm going to now turn it over to School Services with Danielle Connolly and Kathleen Spencer.
Thank you very much. We'll get our cameras up here, and I am going to load a presentation. Bear with me one moment. Okay, so hopefully we all can see that on the screen. Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Noguchi, district staff. I'm Kathleen Spencer with School Services of California, and tonight I'm joined by my colleague Danielle Connolly. We're pleased to be here to present the results of the compensation study that we conducted for the district. As part of the district's ongoing effort to evaluate compensation, we were contracted to conduct a compensation analysis for the 8 positions or job classifications in the superintendent's cabinet listed here on this slide. The analysis included a comparative group of 8 districts that have historically been used by the district, Modesto City Schools, for compensation and classification studies. These districts are a compilation of districts geographically proximate to Modesto City Schools and districts of a similar size and demographics. Both latter characteristics influence funding for school districts. For some context on the analysis process, to identify comparable positions within the district group, we reviewed many sources of information, including employee contracts, salary schedules, job descriptions, and organizational charts. We then use this information to determine comparable job classifications that have a similar span of control, level of responsibility, essential functions, and education and experience. We do not simply match job titles of positions. It is a more in-depth analysis to ensure that those characteristics align for the best comparison. We then calculate the minimum and maximum salary offered for the comparable positions in the district group for each of the job classifications under review, so for each of those 8 job classifications. For each of those job classifications, we also calculate the median or midpoint or middle of the maximum salary range for the comparative group. The maximum salary then of the district's job classification is evaluated against that median or midpoint of the maximum salary range in the comparative group. So again, speaking back to that factor of looking at the midpoint, not the top of the range, but again, that midpoint of the salary range for the comparative group. We use the maximum salary as a comparison point in all of our studies as a standard, but it's especially pertinent here for the district because the district's executive administrators are paid at a contracted amount. There is no salary range, so their contracted amount is the maximum potential compensation earned by the administrator incumbents. Based on the comparisons shown on this slide and those at the maximum salary level, the district's executive administrators overall rank lower in compensation when compared to the similar positions in the comparative district group. And you can see the rankings here on this slide. They are towards the bottom of the group, if not one of the last rankings, the last 2 rankings of the district group. For the majority of the district's classifications also, The compensation is also below the median maximum compensation of the comparative district group, which again is that midpoint analysis of the maximum salary of that group as a whole. So ranking as compared to the other districts is low, and then when we also compare that to the median of the group, as we would expect looking at these rankings, below the median as well. Danielle?
Great, thank you, Kathleen. So the next few slides, we're going to review the salary structure and then also discuss the proposed salary schedule. So as part of the study, we examined the salary structure within the comparative group, in addition to the comparative data that Kathleen just shared. There are two variations of the pay structure. An individual pay grade, such as what you have in Modesto for executive cabinet level positions, or a salary range, which includes incremental steps. As shown on this slide here, the cabinet level positions within the group provide a pay grade range for the most part, with the exception of Sarah's Unified School District and U Modesto City, who have a singular individual salary range for these positions. Next slide. So in order for the district to maintain equity internally and offer comparative and competitive salaries externally within these particular job classifications, it's proposed that a pay structure be established to provide incremental increases that are driven by essentially employment service. As executive cabinet is the only group within the district that does not receive an incremental increase based on a salary schedule. It is noted that the proposed schedule on the following slide includes a vacant position, a position that's currently vacant, the deputy superintendent position, which is known to be the second in command, and is just listed for future planning should the district take action to fill the position. And with that, we'll go to the next slide. So this salary schedule was built from the data that Kathleen shared earlier, gathered during the study. And it is built for each respective position within the study. In addition to that comparative data, we looked at the job description and essentially the responsibilities and scope of supervision within each position to ensure that the compensation structure listed here is reflective of the essential functions within the district and the job duties. So the median or the mid-range average was used to develop step C, which is the middle of the salary schedule here, and then steps were built out on each side at 3% increments. This schedule, it establishes comparability as it relates to the midpoint of comparative compensation, or it provides compensation that's in the middle of the road within the comparative group, but is still competitive. This schedule also represents the establishment of a pay structure with incremental pay adjustments based on service with the district, and the compensation impacts within the job classifications will all differ. Incremental movement is based on also fiscal factors within the district and an annual performance evaluation of each incumbent. So I'm going to move to longevity next. So switching gears from the salary and talking about longevity, it is common within the industry for districts to offer longevity compensation for years of service. Longevity is an important factor as it is an effective tool to assist with recruitment and retention. The fundamental elements that we look at when determining the effectiveness of a longevity program are the increments that the longevity is offered, as well as the monetary amount. Specifically, is it a flat amount or is it a percentage of salary? So next slide, please. Considering the elements discussed on the previous slide and the data gathered within the comparative group, there are some noted opportunities to improve the effectiveness of the longevity program for cabinet level staff. In order to encourage retention and also help with recruitment of new staff, we recommend that modifications be made to the longevity program. The current structure begins the first award after 10 years of service and then 5 years thereafter, increments, which is not a true reflection of the professional profile of the executive or cabinet level classification. By changing the increments of the longevity award and compressing the award years, as shown here on this slide, the effectiveness of the program is increased and truly reflects the experience level of employees in this classification, which it is common for cabinet level new hires to have gained their experience in other agencies prior to taking a new position. Thus, they're not necessarily going to have 30 years left of their career to earn longevity. And with that, I'll go to the slide 10. So in summary, we're recommending the establishment of a salary structure for cabinet level job classifications. The proposed salary schedule includes incremental steps at 3%. Incremental step movement is tied to some fiscal contingencies within the district, job performance, in addition to service with the district. And we also recommend modifications to the longevity structure to help with retention, recruitment, and the overall effectiveness of the program. This slide here also shares the approximate cost to implement these changes, should they be implemented effective July 1st, 2020. But it's important to note that these cost estimates do not include statutory or other fringe benefits, and they're just provided to give the board an idea of what the cost of implementation would be for these changes. And so with that, we're going to conclude the school services part of this presentation regarding the study and transition back to Dr. Noguchi for administration recommendations.
Wonderful, thank you. Perfect. So I would like to take a look at this one slide. This slide has been changed since originally posted last Wednesday. I took the seal of school services off and I put just the Modesto City.
Excuse me, just a minute. Could you mute the TV? It's really staticky.
It's one of the, it's Spencer.
It's Kathleen Spencer. Could you mute yours? I think there's some static coming in.
I will absolutely mute it. I did not want to do it during the presentation because I was afraid of clicking the wrong button. So I will
No
do it right
worries.
now.
No
My
problem.
apologies.
No worries. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect,
Okay,
thank
good.
you.
We were just getting a little bit of
A little static feedback.
static, yes.
Okay, so I just want to share what I changed on this particular slide from the slide that was presented on Wednesday. I took off the school services logo because it made it appear as though school services was making this recommendation to move cabinet level salary schedule and longevity, but in actuality, I'm the one making the recommendation using this information. So in full transparency, I wanted to be able to share that. So at this time, I'm looking for approval to the salary schedule and longevity recommendations. So really, I'm going to ask for two separate votes. I'm going to ask for one vote for the salary schedule and longevity, and then a separate vote on the management employment agreements, because Mr. Munoz will be going over the agreements itself, and I'm asking for the salary schedule and longevity recommendations. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, myself and school services.
Okay, questions from the board? Trustee West?
I just wanted to clarify, I believe you said this wouldn't start this year, or when will this start?
So we're looking for it to be placed in the middle of the salary schedule for this year, but the subsequent 3% salary structure would go on to the next year.
The following year. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Irvin?
I wanted to know, when they were doing the analysis, did they take into consideration, like with, some of the districts are the comparable districts, if any of those positions had double duty, so to speak, like they may have been having, additional duties under their belt that made their salary warrant the higher level of pay versus, so we compared the duties and all that stuff together is basically what I'm saying.
Kathleen, can you answer that?
Absolutely. And so as I laid out our methodology, it's very important. This is a great question because we want to ensure that we are looking at a similar position, as similar as we can manage, right? And you're right. There are districts where duties are aligned differently across districts and positions, but generally we again look for that similar comparison based on those factors of looking at the span of control. And by span of control, we mean just that. What are the areas of responsibility under that position? So in business services, right, is it just financial operations, or does it include the operations side? And if it's educational services, does that include special education, or is it just the curriculum and instruction side of the house? And so that is part of our analysis. And so you will have noted that for some of the positions in the study, there were not comparable positions to be found. And it is because just of that reason, that there were other factors, whether the span of control was different, the level of responsibility, or the essential functions of that position were different. And so based on our analysis, we feel that these positions, the comparable positions, line up in terms of the functions and duties of the positions in your district.
Okay. And then one other comment I just want to say, I mean, and looking at all of this in terms of the comparable districts, and, you know, it was kind of a little disheartening to see that we were so far behind or, you know, below other comparable districts, and even districts within our own catchment area, so to speak, here being the county seat. Because we are, you know, just like any business, public, private, you know, using sports analogy, it's always free agency out there when it comes to talent, and you know, and we want to make sure that, you know, we attract and retain the best possible talent we can in order to support our infrastructure for one, but our teachers, our students, and, you know, everyone involved. Because when you have top talent, you're striving for championships. We want all our students to be champions. We want our teachers to be champions, our support staff. And that starts with the leadership, you know, and retaining and obtaining the best leadership possible. And so I think Superintendent Noguchi and, you know, has assembled a great team from inside, using talent we've already had and combining that with talent, and, you know, brought from other districts. And we need to be able to keep that talent here. And so, you know, I'm definitely, you know, in support of that proposal to be able to do that, so we can elevate ourselves to the next level. So, just want to
Right. Thank you, Mr. Irvin. Trustee Newman.
I had a question for Dr. Noguchi. I just want to clarify, the 3% is proposed, so we're moving to the median salary right now, immediately. The 3% is proposed for next year, but not for sure.
Right. It's really contingent on two factors. One is a satisfactory evaluation, and secondly is the fiscal solvency and the fiscal state of the district. I have had an experience in past districts where there are 1, 2, 3 years where we didn't necessarily get that step because other bargaining units weren't getting a step either. So really we align with the fiscal stability of the district.
Okay, any other questions? Trustee Lopez, did you have a question?
I was just gonna ask, along with that, does that necessarily mean when we're making those certification, or that I'm blanking out on the word here, but when the two steps, whether we have physical solvency, second step is what was it? Evaluation. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for. Is it all in layman's term, pass or no pass, or is there a variable between 1, 2, or 3%?
I haven't seen an instance where there's a variable between 1, 2, and 3%. Really, under my leadership and the evaluations that I do, either you have a successful evaluation, or you don't. So I don't think that there's a midway. The reality is, it's all about, for me, it's growth. It's not about I gotcha. And so for me, it's always looking at the growth that each individual cabinet member has made. What I can say from the time that I started here, my first year, to the growth that I see in cabinet now is phenomenal, in the fact that I don't have to make all the decisions or feel as though all the decisions were coming to me. These individuals here are decision makers and experts in their own right. But recognize the recommendation I'm bringing forward here is not necessarily about the people in the room. It really is about a structure to make our district more efficient and effective in moving forward as we strive to become the destination district that we all envision for it to happen. This is something that's going to hold us back in the future. And so really what I'm looking for is setting the table for the next superintendent that's going to come in here with all the systems that we've put in place. This is just one. We also have CIPD and our EL department and our data dashboard that you'll see in the next board meeting, and many other structures. So it's just part of the whole revisioning of Modesto City Schools.
Definitely, and I like that you pointed out that this is to look in the future, right? We have to think about not only today, but where we're going to be at. And one of the things that we asked of you is, and you've asked of yourself and of your staff members, is to be a destination district, right? And then everything that we're doing, we want to achieve that. We want to work towards that. So I just wanted to mention it for people at home that might be a little bit adamant. We're trying to bring and keep and bring in the top talent, right? In our district, in our county, outside of our county, I know that we've brought in great folks from outside. Kept some really great ones. And like Trustee Irvin said, we want the best players on our team. Mm-hmm. And so this goes a long way in doing that. And it's just one of the many steps that we're taking to make sure that we're keeping them, that we're keeping our talent, that we're bringing in the talent, and that we're keeping them on their toes and getting creative, right? We want them to work in the space where they can grow. And to do that, we need to make sure that their families are taken care of as well.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Brown, do you have any questions? Trustee Brown?
I did have one question. So how does the 3% compare with increases on the step and column chart?
Is that Kathleen or Danielle that can answer that?
Danielle, which step and column? I guess I'd like some clarification if I could. Trustee Brown, which step and column charts?
Step and column for the certificated employees.
So it's not part of our study to do that comparison. I think, Danielle, if you want to speak to kind of best practices industry wide, I will just reference that that we did see that in your certificated salary schedule, the range varies in the steps from about, I calculated quickly, so it's probably not accurate, but probably somewhere in the ones up to the threes. In terms of percentages, it's not a consistent percentage across the schedule, which is not unusual, but many districts do attempt to have what we call a squared salary schedule, where there is a consistent percentage applied across steps, but it is very common based on a number of factors of how the schedule was developed over time and how it's been negotiated that we see that differential percentage increase. But Danielle, would you like to speak quickly about the industry standards that we see on percentages?
Sure, and Trustee Brown, I'll do my best to keep us out of the weeds and not get too technical on all this stuff.
I apologize for asking a question just in the weeds. So
No, I appreciate the question. But the industry standard for when you're building a salary schedule is to use either 3% incremental steps or 5%. Now, what do we find out there in reality? Some salary schedules are squared, which translates to the salary schedule is perfectly situated with the same increments across the board. However, in many cases, you may see 3%, 5%, or maybe 1.5%, and it's very difficult and costly for districts to get that salary schedule squared. So once you have it, many will do everything they can to maintain it, because if you start getting these variations, then it's difficult. But as far as how this proposed salary schedule was built, it was using the industry standard at the lower 3% increment to establish comparability. I hope that answered the question.
And if I may also
Yes.
interject here, is that I do believe when you look at the certificated salary schedule, you'll find between 2 and possibly 3.5% at various areas. In full disclosure, there is the opportunity for certificated employees not only to step each year, but also to move to other columns. So they would get a percentage increase for their experience, and then if their units through education, they could move to another column for even a higher percentage. I also do believe that the 2 to 3% is also consistent with CSEA's steps through their salary schedule. Again, if there is a promotion, I believe the minimum, and I'm looking at Dawn over here, but I think the minimum is a 5% increase if there is a promotion, if minimally, or maybe not, but yeah. So it is sort of what's being proposed tonight, sought to be, again, that sort of happy medium, sort of that Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold, but right in the middle,
Right.
if that helps.
That's helpful.
Thank you, Dawn.
Okay, any other board members have any questions? And then we'll go to the public for comments. No other board members? Okay, so, Ms. Chambers, are there any comments from the public? I see one. Yes, Mr. Corgett.
I don't know if you guys could hear me okay through my mask.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Board President, Trustees, Superintendent, and Cabinet. My name is Donald Corgett. I am the Chief Negotiator for the Classified Bargaining Unit for Modesto City Schools, representing CSEA. You are being asked today to consider something very wrong that should send a signal of division, not unity, between administrators and all other Modesto City School staff. In your board agenda, you are being asked to consider to approve a 3% salary increase for the superintendent's cabinet. This is wrong, very wrong. Unless there are funds to give the entire Modesto City School staff a 3% increase, this is not the signal to promote unity and should and show value for all Modesto City School staff. I believe this was a major factor and the results in our ratification vote at our chapter meeting held last Friday for our tentative agreement with the district. We just found out about this proposal 3 days before our ratification vote, and it got around quickly to our membership, and it was not taken very well at all. The agreement which we we're voting on included 2% one-time money, nothing ongoing, aside from the $300 increase for the health and welfare benefits, which did not even help, approximately half of our eligible employees. It merely gave them the status quo on their current $575, which they receive cash in lieu monthly. A group of approximately 300 or more were actually hurt by the new agreement, losing money. Approximately $175 a month was being lost to the most needy of our employees in the lower paying jobs that are on covered California insurance for themselves and their family members. These include single income household employees with children that have covered California for the family insurance coverage, which is subsidized and costs maybe $100 a month for the family and the employee. And that, or perhaps less. This would give $475 a month of their cash in lieu to live on, which a lot of them do, to pay rent and to pay bills and to put food on the table each month. That $450 the classified members receive monthly wasn't originally intended for health care benefit dollars. and our classified bargaining unit sacrificed percentage of a COLA increases of salary to build this up over the years. Unlike any other bargaining unit, management and certificated used to have something similar, but they converted it to salary dollars back in 2002. Because of Modesto City Schools' shortcoming in providing affordable health care insurance, it has become necessary over the years for the poorest of our classified bargaining unit and the most needy, those whose families who live off these funds without insurance or using subsidized insurance through Covered California. The district is now attempting to make the employees ineligible to use Covered California as group insurance if they want to receive their cash in lieu. Our classified employees are not naive or blind, and it is an insult to them to see others offers of 3% salary increase to the highest paid individuals in our district, the superintendent's cabinet. I respectfully request the board have item B7 removed tonight, or at least vote no on it. Approval of this agreement in the salary schedule unless you could propose a increase across the board to all district employees and promote unity, representing a team and working towards the goal of being a destination district as being advertised. If you look closely at the school services report, take it with a grain of salt. It's not all accurate information. There is a statement in there that is very misleading, for example. In the report, it states the admin and management is the only group that's not receiving an automatic COLA or cost of living increase. This is a very untrue statement. No COLAs are automatic. If this was the case in the 2019-20 school year, the district received a 2.7% COLA, and they are collecting that. That was never offered to our classified unit, and it was never offered to certificated unit. Please vote no on this proposal unless you can give a 3% increase to all of our employees and send the right message of unity, not division. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corgett. I don't believe there's anyone else comments from the public, but Ms. Noonan, were there any comments from the public via email or voicemail?
Yes, we have 2 comments that were submitted. So I will go ahead and read those. The first comment it's not identified by a name. The comment is, I understand that you want to give yourselves a salary increase and the data shows you are on the low end, but how in the world can you talk about an increase when teachers gave up a salary increase because of COVID? When the negotiations were taking place for the 1920 year before COVID began, and because of the pandemic, we let it go and said, okay, we'll back off without knowing the budget. It is such a slap in the face to try and get a salary adjustment now for yourselves. And that's the end of that comment. The next comment comes from Nick and Christina Blom. I hope I'm saying their name correctly, Bloom or Blom. They are parents of a Modesto High student. Their comment is, it is our firm belief that under the current circumstances related to the stressors COVID has brought upon the district, that no superintendent should be receiving unscheduled increases to compensation. After reading the compensation analysis, it is clear that the district superintendent salaries are generally below the median. We believe that bringing those salaries in line with the median is important. However, this is not the time. We encourage the board to oppose the approval of any motion in support of passing this now. Instead, we ask that the board make a motion and vote to revisit at a later time when there has been effective recovery from the effects of COVID. Sincerely, Nick and Christina Blom. And that concludes the public comments that were submitted.
Okay, thank you. Now it is back to the board, and so I just want to clarify, we're making 2 votes, and you're going to clarify, we're going to do one on salary and longevity, and then another one on management agreement. And just to clarify the 3%.
So let me.
Okay, are there any comments from the board first before we go to that? Are there any other comments from the board? Trustee Newman.
Well, if Dr. Noguchi, do you want to clarify the 3%? Because I think that's been misstated.
Absolutely. So what we're asking for today is that cabinet salaries are put to the median. Actually, it's the low median, but it's put to the median for this year. And then also the approval of the salary structure moving forward, which would then, for next year and subsequent years moving out, it would be a 3% move across the salary schedule, much like other bargaining partners, in addition to the longevity. So it's not a 3% this year. What we're asking for is just being put in the middle this year. And then next year, should we be in a position fiscally and with satisfactory evaluations, then you would potentially go have that move over in a step.
Okay.
All right. I think that 3% is important to clarify. It's not written into the agreement. That's also important to clarify as well. So the proposed agreements we're going to be voting on later, it's just basically we're approving this salary schedule, which has a 3%. So if you go from step C to step D, it's 3%.
Right.
Right. And it's only going to go from step C to step D if the employee has a suitable review.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's accountability built in, and that we have the money, right?
Right.
Okay. So I think that there was some gross misstatements made by Mr. Corgett. And so I understand the frustration, but I think this is, and I understand the Blum's comment that there's a timing issue on this. However, we've been working on this for quite some time, several years now. This has been part of the plan to attract people to the district, to attract and keep talent, and that's been a primary goal. We need to build a team that's capable of doing the work. And I think COVID, it actually is the time, because during this time of COVID, we've had people working in cabinet, you people out there, that have just done amazing work. Because you are in your positions doing this work, we've actually been able to function. And since, during my time on the board, unfortunately, there have been times where there haven't been people that were sitting in those positions that we could make the district work during COVID. And we could still do the business of educating our students. And so I do think that, COVID has brought out the best in some of our leadership. And I think that it's also shown us that we need to make sure we can keep and attract talent. I think that the second point is that the plan is flexible, and we just went through why it's flexible, because we're setting it at the median, and then the 3% only comes in if it's approved by the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because this contract would have to change, and all of these contracts come to the board for approval. Mm-hmm. So we can't, the superintendent can't unilaterally give them that 3% raise. Mm-hmm. So I think we've worked really hard over the last few years to try and remove our highest level employees from this concept of you have to be paid like the unions. And I think that's important, because the expectations, this is my third point, the accountability and expectations of our highest level employees is completely different than our teachers and our classified staff. Teachers have permanent employment. These people are employed pursuant to a contract that's got an expiration on it. Mm-hmm. Do you all understand? Does the public needs to understand that? Most of our teachers are permanent employees. That means they have ownership rights in their job. The people that are working in our cabinet are only there during the time that they have a contract. Mm-hmm. So there's accountability that's built into the instrument we're putting into place. And so they're very different, and they need to be treated different. I've worked really hard the last few years to try and do that, mm-hmm. and to divorce this Me Too from our highest level employees. And we expect more of our cabinet. We expect more of our superintendent. They work more days. They work more time. I know that this is hard work. It's been very difficult to continue working during COVID and to deal with management issues. I deal with it at home with my husband that has to come home with the newest thing that's happened at the office that he's got to deal with. I see it at the place I work as well. And so this is not easy time to do management work. And so I think this is the time to recognize we have to have talent. We have to have people capable of doing the work in the district, because this just doesn't happen without you. And so my vote is yes, obviously.
Yes. So are there any other comments, other board members? I know a couple of you made some comments earlier, but Mr. Brown, Trustee Brown, did you have some comment?
Yes, I do. So I want to just comment a bit about the concept of a destination district. In the few short years that I've been on the board, I've seen that our district has been a great training ground for other district employees, or other districts' future employees. And I've seen a great exodus of some of our brightest and best from both the certificated staff as well as the management staff as they've accepted positions in other districts for higher pay. And I think that's a problem that we need to overcome, and it's one that we need to address for our up and coming employees in the ranks, whether they be certificated or classified, to see that there are high-level positions that they can train towards and stay within the district, rather than have to jump ship and go to work for a neighboring district to make more money. So I see that this is an equity building and leveling measure that's before us, and one that's necessary for us to truly be that destination district. So I'm supporting it as well.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. Any other board members have any comments? Well, I'll just say that I'm supporting this as well. I appreciate all the hard work that the staff has done. I know the cabinet has worked overtime in many areas over these last few months, in many ways. Just knowing what has had to take place to actually have board meetings and get our schools up and running is just incredible. Watching newscasts, trying to keep up with the news, and then having it change after staff's made a decision. I know you guys have gone through the roller coaster this past year, but I just appreciate the fact that we've done a study, even though it took us quite some time to do the study, a couple of years actually, and then to be able to get to this point tonight, to be able to appreciate and actually hold our staff to to an area that and be compensated where you should be. And even though it's in the middle, I appreciate that we're at least getting there tonight, and it sounds like it's possible with the comments that have been made. So now we're going to vote on the salary and longevity. And so the vote is so if you could tell me what the actual motion is, because right now I have the salary schedule. All right. So, so do I have a motion to support? So moved. Okay, Trustee Newman has made a motion to support the salary and longevity schedule, and Trustee Irvin has seconded that. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Aye. None opposed. It passes 6-0. And now we're moving on to the management agreement.
Thank you. And this I'm going to turn over to Mr. Munoz.
Thank you, Dr. Noguchi. Tonight, the board is asked to approve employment agreements for cabinet members. Government Code Section 54953 requires that prior to the board taking final action on these contracts, the board must receive a verbal report summarizing the salary schedules, or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits during the open meeting in which final action is to be taken. The employment agreements before the board for consideration are for Dr. Heather Contreras, Brad Godot, Mike Henderson, Mark Herbst, Krista Noonan, Lauren Odell, Russell Selkin, and Tim Zierle. Each employment agreement provides for an annual base salary pursuant to the salary schedule presented to the board tonight. The salary schedule includes longevity. Each employee will be placed at step C for his or her respective position. Also included is a term stating these employees are eligible to participate in professional development compensation that is available to other district management employees. For example, during the 2021 school year, there is the opportunity to receive 0.5% compensation for 6 hours of professional development, and that has been provided to certificated and management staff, and has been proposed to classified staff also. Health and welfare benefits are equivalent to the benefits available to management employees, and the term of each agreement is through June 30th, 2022. If you have any questions, I'd be more than glad to answer them.
All right, and on the contract in the salary part, it states plus advanced degree compensation provided to other managers. Is that required by law?
No, it's not required by law. It is a standard that is in the existing agreements, and it's provided to all managers at this time.
Okay. So my thought on this is that the level of compensation on the salary chart already reflects an educated person. And so to give an additional stipend for any additional degrees, again, I'm trying to get this to fall outside what we normally do with our managers, with our certificated staff. I think it should be different. And then I also want to clarify one thing. In your statement, you had said overtime, and I just want to make sure that everybody knows, and so I'm going to ask this question. None of our cabinet employees are paid overtime, are they?
They are not. They are considered.
And that is a unanimous no. Yes, we please do not misstate that to anyone. That unlike other managers, now let me ask this clarifying question. Other managers that like maybe we have, because I've seen this on the schedule, so we'll have a curriculum, like our social science curriculum developer, okay? They work a little bit of overtime. I see that on the schedule, right? They get some money in overtime, right? Like our principals maybe get overtime? No?
No. Our certificated
if they work additional days?
management do not receive overtime. They're exempt employees. I would think that there would be, it mostly falls upon classified employees that receive overtime, since our certificated employees are considered exempt. Certificated management is considered exempt.
But our certificated employees, if they're asked to work additional hours, they do get paid for those.
Yeah, those are forms of stipends outside of the negotiated professional workday. There are opportunities to take on additional work, special programs. We've increased the number of them over the last couple of years to serve our students.
So what I'm trying to make sure we do is keep these agreements very different from any other compensation, because it is different. What's expected is different. And so I think that the advanced degree compensation is written into the amount of the salary, and if it's not required by law, I would prefer that it not be in there.
I just want to say that
Trustee Brown has a comment. Sorry, I had my microphone off. Trustee Brown?
Yeah, one challenge or one difficulty that I see with that is that even our cabinet member employees are expected to continue to learn and to grow. And if they're pursuing an advanced degree that will assist them in being better and stronger in the position, I would support them being paid and compensated for having taken that step. So I'm not sure that I'm willing to take that away.
Any other board members have any comments on that? I hadn't thought about it, but go ahead, Trustee Lopez.
I see both points, and I understand when you're going for a job, there is certain recommendations or things that they require for the position, right? So I do see that. I understand the point that Trustee Brown is making. So where would that middle ground be, and where that distinction? Are we talking about a PhD bonus or increase? I don't know, but I see both points, and I'm torn in both.
I mean, to clarify, my point is really just to make sure that that these agreements are very different than the way we compensate our teachers, because it's different. What's expected of our cabinet staff is very different. And so this idea that you get a master's or you get a doctorate, which is great. I totally want people to do that. The idea that you get that and then you get a stipend, which is built into the teacher compensation, then it shouldn't necessarily be a part of this. Again, this is supposed to be really different. And that's my point. So this is a contract that's really different, and we're also, maybe that would mean you hire somebody with a doctorate. Maybe you don't bring them in at level C. Maybe you bring them in at D. Maybe that's how you do that. Or maybe you negotiate the longevity in that way. Maybe you do it that way. And so the idea that again, it's just different. This should be really different. That's the point.
Okay, and I hear you on that. I'm kind of want to know what if there's anything in the results from school services that they had where other districts did or didn't do that. So Kathleen or Danielle, are you still there?
Yes, we are still here.
Okay, did you hear the question? It is...
We did.
Okay, great.
Yes. Danielle, do you want to take a stab at that, or do you want me to first?
Go ahead and go first, and then I'll add something.
Okay. So I wanted to look. So I think these are good comments. I think it's also important to note what is required in your current job descriptions for your current positions that you're discussing. And so for the master's degree, for example, is not required in all of your job classifications on the superintendent's cabinet. So that's something I just want to point out. So that is something that would be important. Other they already have, but it is for all of those. And I would say that, and I'm just trying to look in an appendix really quickly here, that in our experience, it's very common to have those additional stipends for that education. Part of it has to do with it's not required in the job description, it's not built into that compensation model in that way. And again, as Trustee Brown has I think nicely depicted, it's a way to continue to encourage that growth and incentive for your professional staff in that area. That you want to ensure that they are continuing to grow and attain that higher level of education. But Danielle, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, it's just, I'd just like to add that the honorariums or the stipends for additional educational degrees is part of that overall compensation picture. Now, this study that we discussed here tonight was an intense focus on salary because the objective was to build a salary structure. But when we look at compensation in a total compensation study, we look at, the benefits, all the stipends, all the other compensation possibilities for a particular classification. And should this be removed from these particular positions, then again, that is skewing or changing the comparability as it compares to other positions. So I just wanted to bring that up as something to think about. And that, yes, I think the points are great that Trustee Newman was making regarding, these positions are starkly different from certificated or classified unit positions. But in many ways, some of them are still certificated. And so there are often commonalities and similarities between those classifications in terms of how they're compensated. For example, I don't know of an admin credential position, which administrative credentials are required for the certificated positions, that doesn't require a master's degree. That's part of the program. So anyone coming up as an administrator on their certificated side, they're going to have at least a master's. So just some things that I just wanted to point out as part of the conversation.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that additional information. Okay, so is the board ready to vote? Are there any other comments before we vote on the management side? So do I have a motion to approve the management agreement that was read to us by Mr. Munoz?
I'll move.
Okay, Trustee West makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second? I'll second it to approve the management schedule, the management agreement for the managers. So all those in favor of approving the management agreements, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Brown, did you say aye? Yes? Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay, and any opposed?
Nay.
Trustee Newman is opposed, so it passes 5-1, and that completes this item. And now we will move on to the last one, which is, are there any items to be placed on future Board of Agendas? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Trustee Newman, our last opportunity to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do you have a second? Trustee Irvin, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Great to have you, Abel, and we'll see you next time.